the West Puget Community Connection Podcast. This is where we learn about the people of our community. We learn what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Subscribe by email at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. We look forward to learning more about you. The West Puget Community Connection Podcast is brought to you in part by mywebdesignservices.com. Quick, easy, affordable websites that look amazing across all devices. For a quote or to get started today, visit mywebdesignservices.com. Welcome to the West Puget Community Connection Podcast, where we learn about the people in our community, what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Our mission is to stimulate community engagement by creating a sense of community and rapport. We do that through interviews and storytelling with locals. You can listen to the podcast for free with unlimited streaming on our homepage at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. Contact us if you're interested in advertising or being featured on the show. And now, without further ado, we bring you this episode of the West Puget Community Connection Podcast.
Today we welcome Rhonda Hull. Rhonda has her master's in education and a doctorate in psychology. She's also an author, calligrapher, speaker, and guide who uses her art, words, and insights to create meaningful keepsake products that spread the energy of love. So, Rhonda, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's nice to be here today.
Great. Welcome to the West Puget Community Connection Podcast.
Wonderful.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm excited that I get to interview you because we've been friends for a little while now, and this gives me a chance to learn more about you.
Great.
So I kind of want to start with just some stories about your experiences, like things that you've done in your lifetime that stand out to you, professionally, personally.
Well, I think, it's always hard to narrow it down to just one. I think that the standout things in my life, for sure, have started with the birth of my own children. That's led to me having 4 amazing grandkids, and that certainly has become a driving force of how and why I make the decisions I make in my life. So it's always been my intention since I had my kids. I wanted to raise kind and gentle people. It was important to me that they get the best education I could afford them and would have all of those experiences in their life. But most important for my kids and my grandkids is that they understand that they're responsible for creating a life that matters, and I measure my success as a parent and a grandma is for my kids and grandkids to know that I'm after them to become kind and gentle people more than judge them for all of the letters and certificates that they have. I feel that's the greatest contribution we can make to the world.
Yeah, okay. So when you had your children, this became the priority in your life. I'm raising humans now, and I want to make sure that they become kind, gentle humans, and they lead a meaningful life, a fulfilled life. And
Absolutely.
Now you have 4 grandchildren. You get to repeat the process with a little practice under your belt.
Yeah, it's funny how by the time you become a grandma, and they call me Tutu, it's Hawaiian for grandma, but by the time you become a grandma, you don't have the same responsibility that you had as a parent. And so, my grandkids certainly get the crazier side of me. And, I was already really good at building forts. And they know that I will dance whenever there's music. It doesn't matter where we are. So they know that that's the part of the crazy grandma they get. And I know that when I was a mom, kind of weathering through my divorce and raising kids as a single parent, that I suppose all moms, they get the tougher job of being more responsible in any given moment. So, but it's an evolution. And, because of my kids, I was really motivated to, I had really wonderful parents. And I know that because of their journey, they were products of the Depression, that they wanted to make sure that they gave us all of the advantages that they didn't have. And so what I learned from that was that I wanted to certainly give my kids that, but I really missed, because both of my parents worked full time and were always so stressed out about money, that they didn't necessarily have the time. And so as a kid, I remember really wanting their time and attention. So it became important to me to be able to show up in my kids' lives emotionally, not just by making sure that they had enough food to eat and a roof over their head, but to really be present. And so that's been a guiding force.
Yeah.
And it's been something that's followed kind of from, I say that my work takes me from womb to tomb. Once my kids were born, I became really involved in childbirth education, and then as they started school, I went and got my master's in education and followed them at different stages of their growth. I just learned as I could along the way, and ultimately it led me to my doctorate in psychology, so I could understand exactly why we were doing all of this.
Wow. Okay, so that definitely provides a lot of insight into where you come from and how your values developed. With your parents wanting to provide security, like financial security and stability, and provide the advantages that they didn't have, and then you learning, hey, my parents are working so hard to provide this for me, I miss them a little bit in my life, and so when you had your kids, you wanted to make sure that you were present in their lives, contributing to developing them into like the most fulfilled humans they could be. Yeah. And this was actually like this is what guided you. This is what led you down the path to study education and psychology, so you can really understand and respond to your children's upbringing, it sounds like. Yeah.
I feel fortunate that there wasn't a day in my life that I ever doubted that my parents loved me. But it's kind of where I needed to translate so I could understand their love language. And I know that the day that I graduated with my degree, my undergraduate degree from college, it was an art degree. And the day that I graduated, my dad, with all the good intentions in the world, said to me, I am really so proud of you. You're the first one in our family who has ever graduated from college. I'm proud of all of your hard work, and now I'm hoping that you will find something you can fall back on, because you'll never make a living as an artist. And so that was one of those pivotal moments for me where, got to make Dad proud. And I knew that he loved me, but he was trying to protect me. But that was where my whole passion for art shifted. And the only way that I knew that I could be an artist and still do something that I loved was to be a teacher. And so that's how I initially detoured into my background in getting teaching credentials, and had my own kids along the way. So, with all good intentions, that's one of those pivot points in my life.
Mm-hmm. Those words, now I hope you have something to fall back on. That really meant something to you. That struck you, well, it kind of, I guess you were wanting like acceptance from your dad, or
Sure, yeah,
his
I think all
support,
kids do.
or maybe it was just about providing him with peace also, so that he could have the peace of mind of knowing that you would have the security that he worked his whole life to provide you with, because that's so important.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what all of us face as we're growing up, is that the whole growing up process is discerning for yourself whether you're living your life to make your parents happy, but how do you balance that with making yourself happy? And I would say it's probably something I still, I won't say struggle with, but I grapple with today. It's like even choosing the path that I have taken now, with finally picking back up that thread in the weave of my life, picking up that thread of art and trying to include that in my work that kind of weaves together everything I learned as an educator and everything that I've learned in the field of psychology from the moment we're born to the moment that we die. It's all of those transitional moments. How do I help people at those transitional moments using and incorporating my art? Always asking myself that question. It's like not only my dad, but culture in general doesn't acknowledge that art is something worth paying for, or guidance or spiritual support is something worth paying for. So I think it becomes an interesting question as for me right now, trying to balance creating a sustainable living, incorporating my art, when there's all that background question that's kind of supported by our culture that that those are just things that you don't invest in or pay for regularly. So,
right. Yeah.
Or they're not as important or meaningful if you have to pay for them.
And so I see that you've found a way to combine art with nurturing, is like the word that's coming to mind right now, that you're nurturing people's spirits with words and calligraphy and your artwork and your products, the keepsake products that you create. Like I'm familiar with your products because I've visited your website, rhondahull.com. We'll go ahead and plug it right there, rhondahull.com.
Okay.
You can take a look at Rhonda's keepsake products. She makes really neat items to inspire. And yeah, I can see how that all comes together now.
Yeah, along the way, after having my own kids, and you started out wondering. I know you've asked me before what kind of drew me to the Northwest, and after I had my kids and raised them, and really felt like they were launched, I migrated further north. I started out in Southern California, had my kids in Northern California, and then once they were launched, it's when I moved up to Port Townsend on a dare. And I think that
on a dare.
As you interview people about how they land here, you find that many of them felt called. And I originally came to the Northwest in the mid-'90s to a workshop up on Orcas Island with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is really the seminal person known for her work in the field of death and dying. And I had lost my grandmother, a peer friend of mine, and a friend of mine, when I was involved in childbirth, a friend of the whole childbirth education field, a friend of mine lost one of her children just a couple of weeks prior to his first birthday. So when I experienced those three losses, it motivated me to take this workshop up here. And that's when I fell in love with the Northwest. And many years later, I came back and visited a friend of mine out on Marrowstone Island. And that's when I decided, okay, this is where I'm going to move one day.
You've just
so I
felt
went home and I made my plan of 2 years, how I'm going to move up here. And I kept looking on our newspaper online, the PT Leader, and found a house for rent and called her to ask her how much would I get for my money if I rented this little place out on Marrowstone, so I could plug in a number on my Excel spreadsheet. And she called me back and said, Rhonda, if you don't rent this place, then you don't want all of the things you say you want, and I don't want to hear about it anymore. So to me, that was a good friend. She dared me. I rented the place.
I see. She said, "This is your opportunity. This is a good fit."
That's right, because I knew that I was done with the hustle and bustle. My kids were I was waiting for my first grandson to be born, and it was hard to leave because of that. But I knew that if I stayed in the hectic circle of Northern California, that I just emotionally I would die, if not physically. And so I made that leap. I made that leap to the Northwest, and I haven't regretted it. I've been up here 17 years.
Wow. Well, yeah, that gives me a lot to process. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite part about living here in this area? What do you like about it?
Oh my gosh. When I first moved up here, it was amazing to me to experience that people still remembered how to smile and be kind. That I had a friend who helped me move up here that we were pulling, he saw two cars coming to the same parking space, and one car pulled in, but then noticed that the other person had seen it first, and so they backed out and waved the other person in. And
I love that.
He, coming from the Northwest, was just amazed. It's like this is like another planet.
Right.
And
yeah, that's not the cold.
I would say, yeah, I've seen it shift a little bit over the years because just the world in general has finally reached the Northwest a little bit. But that my favorite part about being here in Port Townsend are the people and just having nature be so accessible.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so I can relate to the value of the warmth in the community, like the closeness of it, because it has that small town vibe. You see the same people, and I experience the same thing out here. People are warm and welcoming, and it kind of reminds me of, I lived in the Midwest for a little while, just for like a year. And when I got out to a small town in the Midwest, I experienced the same sort of warmth of a small town vibe. And I like that a lot here, too. And the second thing you mentioned, the accessibility to the beauty of nature, is definitely at the top of my list, too. Yeah, it's beautiful here.
Yeah, where we have almost more deer than we have people.
Yeah,
so
certainly more trees.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so one of my next question is, what experiences have brought the most meaning and satisfaction into your life? What do you live for? And it sounds like you kind of already answered that question quite a bit. And it sounds like that your children were your lead and your guide through a good part of your life there, and that you were finding meaning in being a good parent, raising your children to have the most fulfilling life possible. Yeah.
I mean, another thing that was kind of tricky for me is that back when I was 17 years old, I had a near-death experience. And that was I had it at a time where people generally didn't talk about that. I mean, you hear more people be forthcoming about those experiences now.
Yeah.
But having that at that point in my life, as I have moved forward, I really had to discover that I wasn't afraid of dying. It's where I had to make friends with living. I was really painfully shy and really wasn't sure how I fit back in my body. I wasn't even quite so sure that I wanted to be here when what I experienced was just unconditional, overwhelming sense of love, so to have to come back and step into life that had its messy parts was really challenging. And I really learned along the way, even after when my grandkids were little, my niece, who lived in Alaska at the time, called me and said that her youngest, who was barely 2 at the time, had been airlifted down to Children's Hospital in Seattle with leukemia. So she asked if I would pick her up at the airport with her youngest son, who was only 5 months old at the time. So at that point, I was doing motivational speaking, traveling around the world and working in collaboration with Richard Carlson, who wrote the really infamous book series of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and It's All Small Stuff. And that experience with Connor kind of curtailed my speaking career because it became so evident to me. I spent the greater portion of that year with him at Children's Hospital and the Ronald McDonald House, that it really brought home to me that all of the things that we think are so very important in an instant can shift. And I saw the power of just being present, offering unconditional love to my niece, just being able to support the people around her and all of the caregivers and nurses who were in those life and death situations. So that situation prepared me for when my own grandson, Brody, Connor is 14 now, but at the end of his year that he was at Ronald McDonald House and right when he was sent back to Alaska, I was called to Southern California because my own grandson was diagnosed with autism. So I spent 3 years hands-on, day-to-day in his care and his journey of becoming the most functional and present young man that he can be. And so those incidences brought home to me the importance of caring for the caregivers. And then what I learned the really hard way when my own health caved after that is that caregivers need support too. And I was a caregiver. I could take care of everybody else, but I also needed to learn how to take care of me. So it's now that journey for me of how do I do the work that I love, knowing that time is precious and that at any moment our number could be up. Would I be satisfied on my deathbed if my deathbed were tomorrow, that I've done all the things that matter to me and that I've shown up with my words and my actions matching, made the best difference I can in the world, and also learned how to care for myself.
Well, there you go. That says it all. So, we're learning what's important to Rhonda here. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, you're making my job really easy. Wow. There's just so much of what you just said that I was connecting with, and there's a lot of threads we could pull on there, and but I think what you said there is perfect. I mean, that's.
Well, thank you. I know that it's that ongoing journey for me of being, how do I weave together being the author, the artist, the speaker, and the guide, and doing that in a way that matters.
Okay, so this is where it's all coming together now. It's like we've seen where your values evolved from starting as a child, and then how they shifted once when you graduated college, you had that moment, and your dad said, I hope you have something to fall back on, and that suddenly became like a threat to your purpose. Like, okay, I need to find, now I have this degree, now I need to fulfill my purpose professionally somehow. And then you had kids, and then like your hierarchy shifted again, and it was like, okay, now raising them up to have the most fulfilling life experience is top priority. And it's hard to put into words, but it's just how it all evolved, how your values evolved, and all the things that you've done, and how it all gets tied together. That's what I'm trying to put into words, but I don't think I can do it better than you already have. So I don't think I want to say
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes, or we have gurus in our life, and one of my gurus is Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. It's where I know that somehow being here in Port Townsend supports me through the people and the energy that's here and the beauty that's here. It really supports me in supporting others. I think it was my dad who really taught me that his greatest joy was seeing other people experience joy, and I know that I inherited that. And so the Winnie the Pooh quote that's favorite to me is, "Promise me you'll always remember you're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think." That's Christopher Robin to Winnie the Pooh. So I just know that I'm here to stand next to people and say, you know what, it's okay to be scared. It's look for the good. I think it's even Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers. When tragedy happened, he said, always look to the helpers. Always look for the helpers, because that's where you'll see that love can exist and good things can happen even when the circumstances really suck. And I learned that when my grandnephew went through his journey with cancer, and I continue to learn that with the challenges of having a 13-year-old grandson with autism and even my own health challenges. So I just want people to recognize that we're in this together and no one has to do it alone, and that we are braver than we seem, and braver than we believe, and smarter than we think.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess it was Brene Brown that first introduced me to the concept of vulnerability as a value. And
yep.
So when I hear you talking about vulnerability, like we're all in this together. There's messy moments. There's challenging moments. It's in those times that it's like a birthplace. There's a potential for love to happen, and for learning and growth to happen, and for something really meaningful to develop, that will make life more meaningful ultimately. And so the idea of providing that encouragement and that support to people when they're going through those messy times and they're in those vulnerable moments, I can see how that has become a spiritual practice for you and why it's very practical. And I appreciate it a lot. I really get it.
Yeah.
I think I do.
And I think that we're hardest on ourselves, that we may master the ability not to judge others, but I think what I'm also continuing to learn is the importance of self-love.
Right. Yeah. I think of love as like altruism. And so you've got to be filled up before you can pour from your cup, You've got to be full. And if
that's right. You can't give from an empty cup.
So you've got to be, if loving yourself, if you're loving yourself, if you're actively listening to your feelings and taking care of your needs and providing for yourself, trying to nurture your own life and your own self, if you're being compassionate towards yourself in that way, then it's going to be in your habit and your nature to do that for everyone.
Yeah, and I found the value of group mind, the importance of, I think that's another reason why I came to the Northwest, is that it's not that you surround yourself with people who are always agreeing with you, but you surround yourself with people who stand on common ground, so that when you forget, just like my friend said, look, you've been talking about this forever, you either move here, or I don't want to hear about it anymore. So you need to surround yourself with those people who will hold you to your highest self, who will be compassionate and allow you to have your moment of just falling apart, but will hold you to your highest self.
Wow, so there's a balance there. We're talking about a special kind of friendship. Someone who loves you enough to let you make your own choices and, understand when you're when you're having your moments, not to judge you and abandon you, but to understand, to have patience for you and let you go through your process and make your choices. And then also to be accountable, to say, hey, I know it's important to you, and this is your chance, this is your shot. And so they're kind of encouraging you in that moment of vulnerability. It's the same kind of thing that you were talking about doing for others. You're saying it's important to find friends like that who will be encouraging and supportive when you're going through your vulnerable moments. Is that what you're saying? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Wow, I think I'm going to take a lot away from this call. A lot of wisdom and values that I think will stay with me, and I hope our audience too. I hope that some of this will really, stay with them and become important and useful for them.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the fact that you're doing these interviews, because I really feel that Port Townsend is a jewel, and there are so many people here with fascinating lives and important things to share, and they've come here because they sense that those values are alive here in Port Townsend.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a magical place. There's definitely a certain energy here, and people are drawn here it's diverse. We don't all think alike here, but
we may not have diversity of we may not have diversity of color here necessarily, but we have diversity of thought, and the sooner that we can get beyond the color of our skin or our religion or it's just embrace the diversity that's here. It can be political diversity, it can be diversity of interests, but we have forward thinkers here. My kids say that I have always lived on the edge of curiosity, always wanting to understand more, know more, dabble in uncertainty. So they say that I live on the edge of the earth. So here I am.
Cool.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, it's where we are, up on the edge of the country up here in the northwest corner. And I can really relate to that too, that living with curiosity on the edge of learning and growing and not knowing which is the right way or the wrong way, and experimenting and being okay with making some mistakes along the way. And it's a vulnerable place to live, and a lot of growth happens with a lifestyle like that. And so that makes a lot of sense to me, and I appreciate it. I can really relate to it a lot. I see a lot of that in the people around here. There's just so much energy here. We have artists and athletes and politicians and entrepreneurs, and they're just outrageous. It's just a really radical place. I love it. So now I'd like to know about professionally and the work that you're doing these days with RhondaHull.com and the keepsake products you're creating to provide inspiration and encouragement, and to really bring home, to really help people focus on the way to bring the most meaning to life, and to help them do that. And by the way, I am really impressed with your products that you've created. The My Little Red Book video with Janice Stanfield literally brought tears to my eyes the first time I watched it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really have attempted this next step of who I am, reflecting that and giving birth to my website at rhondahull.com, to bring forward my art and my calligraphy in a meaningful way. And it's also been important to me to be that guide, or use my words and my writing in a meaningful way, and then also to collaborate with others who really get that love is the answer to every question. And so I really felt fortunate to collaborate with Janice Stanfield, who offered the lyrics of her song, My Little Red Book. She's written a whole catalog of positive music. She's written for people like Reba McEntire. So she's just a gifted artist who offered the lyrics of this song. And I knew that from my journey with my grandnephew and with my own grandson, that those people who stand with you, who are willing to go the extra mile, that are willing to uplift you, when you're face down, worn out, overwhelmed, and yet will stand by you until you're ready to stand up one more time, then you fall, that I wanted to appreciate those people in my life and create a keepsake product that people could pay it forward, because everybody needs to create, if they don't have already, those people in your life, those handful of treasured people that you know that at 4 o'clock in the morning you could call and they wouldn't be upset. They would say, what can I do to help?
Oh, man. Yes. So you're bringing back this theme of everybody needs to create this small circle of friends in their life that they can come to, they can be vulnerable with, they can rely on, they're going to know they can get support there, they can get love there, and how important that is for us to experience that kind of human connection and love. That connection and love is like so essential to having a fulfilling life experience.
Yes, and I think it's one of the most profound pieces of important stuff that I brought back from my near-death experience. Is like, that's all that is. Love is that answer. And so that the more that we are all connected, I mean, that's what I got to experience on the other side. And so time and space don't really exist. We can have that heaven on earth or that experience here. So that's why it becomes that's why it is so essential to me to do what I can to, kind of blow the dust off of the recognition that we are all connected, whether we like it or not. So how can we show up for one another in that really kind and consistent way?
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing how your experiences, near-death experience, your niece's child who had cancer and came to Seattle, and you had to be there for her at that time, and then your grandson down in California with autism.
Right.
And I'm sure there were many other experiences where you saw where it's like, hey, sometimes I'm the angel, and sometimes I need angels. And it's up to
Absolutely.
us to create that and be that circle of angels for each other. And so you learn that that's what's important in life.
Yes, at least it is to me. And
Great.
I think that's why I like hanging out in Port Townsend, is because I bump into those people who get it.
Yeah, Yeah. So as far as your work that you're doing these days with RhondaHull.com and the products you're creating and stuff, so far, what has been the most rewarding part of it? I mean, when I watched that My Little Red Book video and I saw what it was you were creating and the music spoke to me, it just like moved me. Like, I was like, man, this is something everybody needs to experience right here. I imagine when that video was produced and you got to push play and watch it, that must have been a big moment for you. I'm just wondering what kind of moments you had like that were really rewarding and you were just like really satisfied. Like seeing your website go up, things like that.
Right. Another product that I wanted to give birth to was all of these different Zentangled calligraphy words. And I hooked up with a dear friend of mine to collaborate on creating a card deck that we called Healing Heart Cards for these 22 words. And we started off on that project, and soon after we dipped our toe into creating these cards, these inspiration cards, my dear friend Mary Thomas was diagnosed with cancer. And she continues to be on that journey. And these cards took on a whole different meaning when we had chosen initially 5 words to talk about to promote this card deck that we had put so much time and tenderness and love into. And then to have her diagnosis, as we talked about those words, they became even more significant because 2 of the 5 words that we had chosen were accept and allow. And when we were working together on what are the questions that we were going to attach to these words to have them on these 22 cards, we spent a whole week just talking from her perspective on those 2 words of acceptance and allowing when you have cancer. And she had to face it herself that she wasn't accepting and she wasn't allowing, and
Wow.
she didn't have grace, and she wasn't willing to surrender. And
oh my gosh,
it's become it didn't start out with the personal hook of why it was so important, but that was revealed. So to me, just how the collaborations that have emerged through me taking this stand for using art and words and collaboration in sync with one another, I don't feel like I have to decide. It's where I'm turning my life to be one where I'm just following. The universe tells me what I'm supposed to be learning rather than me thinking I know and now I have to create a product. So that's where, to me, they're not just products. And it's always been the challenge for me to merge what marketing and promotion and the traditional brick and mortar, and you have to create scarcity, and you have to, the whole way that we're all taught to do sales.
the
commercial way of doing it with just what is that? How can I do my little part in reinventing what e-commerce is and how products, like an artist deserves to be paid for their time, but money isn't the issue. It's how do you spread love? And if you spread love, then it will come back. You need to cover your expenses. Everybody needs to pay their electricity bill. And somehow that has to be merged. I haven't completely found the ideal way to do that, but I'm certainly not going to give up because I feel like, again, we're on that edge where we get that love is the most important thing, and that through that, I have one of the richest lives I know because I've got 2 daughters that love me and I love them. I've got 4 grandkids and 2 grandnephews and a sister, and the people here within this community and beyond, and now you who really look out their window every day and don't want to make their decisions based upon politics and marketing. You want to make it on, can I trust that person? Do I feel safe with that person? How can we grow?
How can I help
together?
that person? How can we grow together? Yeah. That all makes a lot of sense to me. Well, I want to encourage our audience to go to rhondahull.com and go see her what she's calling keepsake products. I don't even know if I'm comfortable calling them products. People are going to have to see them for themselves and then to understand what it is that they do, what the products do for you. And
that's been the hardest part of marketing and promoting for me because you put the word product on it, and then people feel like they're being
they think
sold.
it's a fork or a spoon, but it's something so much more.
They're there to provide. These products, I believe, are there just to provide people with support and creating more meaning in their life.
Right. So I hear that as a challenge. That's a challenge for you. Is like, I've, in all my life experience, I've found that love is the answer to all the questions, and I want to provide love for others, and I want to seek love, create my circle of friends that I can trust and be supported by, and then I want to go out and inspire others to do the same, and provide encouragement to them and encourage them to, find their love in their world. And so the way you're doing that is by producing these key products and marketing them, and yet these products are hard to understand until you actually see them. So it's not like there's a lot of people out on Google looking for a purple backpack or something like that, and you could very easily just advertise a purple backpack, and now they'll find it. But when it comes to something like My Little Red Book, that's not something that people are necessarily out there looking for. They don't even realize how important it is that they have something like that. So I can see that challenge, that one of your challenges is connecting your audience with the product, getting the product in front of them and communicating why it's valuable initially, just for them to check it out. I'm certain as soon as people see that, they're going to get it. As soon as they see the video from My Little Red Book, as soon as they're going to get the concept, and they'll be moved by it, and they'll see the value in it. But one of the challenges is, how do I get this in front of them?
Yeah, it's my real hope that, again, if I can get one product into the hands of someone, that it becomes something that they will automatically pay it forward and say, I know 4 people who could benefit from this. One of my intentions is to create at some point a way of people being able to buy a case of these that I can then take to a Ronald McDonald House, or I can then take to those families that I know are challenged by autism. So that's where it's getting it into the hands. So often we want to make a contribution, but we don't really know how to make a contribution that we really are certain is going to go to the benefit of someone. And I learned when we were going through Connor's experience that some people, once they saw Connor and once they learned about his story, people that my niece didn't even know would write him a check for $500.
Wow.
And so to know that I want to use these products as the way of, just people who are facing relentless challenges can have just 1 or 2 or 3 minutes of peace, just by having these cards, or My Little Red Book, or the playbook day planner that we've created that really just connects people, that they know they're not walking the journey alone, and to provide just little instrumental nudges along the way that help people remember that they're more courageous than they thought.
Oh, yes.
So
yes. Now I can really see that that human value of contribution and how it's alive in everyone. Everybody wants to help someone, somewhere, somehow. And they also want to make sure that the efforts they put in is actually going towards helping the cause that they want it to help. They don't want to throw money at an agency that they don't know or trust. They want to know that whether they're putting money into it or time and voluntary energy or whatever, they want to know that it's going to go to where they want it to go. It's going to make a difference there.
Yeah. Everybody wants to know that they can make a difference, and everybody wants to feel appreciated. And we don't always get to know that we have made a difference. Sometimes it's you may not realize that just by smiling at somebody in a grocery store is going to make a difference, or just buying one book that gets into the hands of someone who needed it at just the right moment. It's like we don't always know, but what we focus on is what expands. And it's so easy to get up every morning and think that there's not enough time, there's not enough coffee, there aren't enough parking spaces. It's where when we can shift our attention to focus on the things that are working, even when everything around it looks like it's not, the difference that was made just in the horrible circumstances of my grandnephew going through his cancer, we saw so many people. He shifted nurses' lives. He shifted strangers' lives. My niece shifted my life by her courage. I mean, I can remember one time where we were going to go to the Space Needle in Seattle with Connor, and he couldn't be in crowded spaces, but we could. She thought, well, maybe we can take him up to the top of the Space Needle. We just happened to be walking by on our way back, getting him out, and she said, do you want to go to the top of the Space Needle? And what I was thinking about was I don't know how much it is now, but at that point it was $16, $17, $18 that would take to ride up to the top of the Space Needle and back. And Connor was 3 at the time. She said, do you want to go to the top? And I said, no, maybe we can go another time, because I'm thinking money. And she said, she looked right into my eyes, right into my heart, and she said, now let me get this straight. Connor could die tomorrow, and now let me ask you the question again. Do you want to go to the top of the Space Needle with us?
Wow.
And it shifted my life.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I probably should, need to pay more attention to money, but I always sort by the things that matter. I always now sort by the things that
your values have moved in your hierarchy. You like one of your big themes is making every moment a keepsake moment.
Yeah.
And that was one of them right there. It sounds like that was one of those experiences you had where she looked right into your eyes and said, do you want to do this now? This is now. And
right.
It became apparent that it was like, now is the time to make these memories and have these experiences and these moments that we'll remember and value.
Yep. And on my deathbed, which am I going to wish I had done? Am I going to wish that I had saved $16, or am I going to be grateful that I seized the moment and went to the top of the Space Needle with my grandnephew?
Man. So I'd like to talk about now, gosh, this is so cool, because we're totally connecting with your values, where they came from, what you're creating in order to share those values with the world. And now I want to talk about your aspirations and some requests that you have for the community. Like, what would you like to see happen? I mean, you mentioned one thing. I think it would be really neat if someone would buy a box of My Little Red books and bring them to the Ronald McDonald House. Or I think that's an awesome idea, and that's a way that someone could make a huge contribution and make a difference if they believe in that. There's lots of ways. What are some aspirations that you have that you'd like to see happen with your products or with your work, with what it is that you do? And what are some things that you'd like to see happen, and how can the community support you?
Anybody who hears this who has some creative way that I can use my keepsake products and get them into the hands of people who are facing big challenges currently, I would just love everyone to help me mastermind, brainstorm, imagine all of the limitless possibilities. I think we think of all of the ways that things won't work. That's where I want to think of all of the ways that will work in letting love override the divisiveness that's present in our world right now. And so I want to use my keepsake products in those ways. I want to partner with people who are up to the same type of mischief I am to see how we can collaborate and create other products or other ideas, like I've done with my friend Janice Stanfield and with Mary Thomas. My aspirations are to see the joy in every moment and to do my best to have my words and actions match and live the rest of my life doing that without compromising that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just to hang out and make friends with and join arms with those people who want to do the same.
Okay. Yes. To experience connection and love to actively create it and to share the importance of it with others. And I'm hearing that request for anyone out there who hears this and wants to help and wants to do that. Reach out to Rhonda Hull, go to her website, send her a contact, and say, hey, I'd like to help. I'd like to join your club. Let's conspire to create love in this world.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We've learned a ton. I feel really inspired. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much for this interview. Thank you for your words. It was really easy.
Thank you for this opportunity, Vincent. I really am grateful for who I've come to know you as and what you're doing here, because I think it makes us all do better work by knowing that we've been seen and appreciated. So I'm really grateful to you reaching out to me.
Thank you. Yeah, there's something about all of us being seen, seeing and being seen, hearing and being heard. That connection, the ability to know other people and what's important to them and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then to take a look at ourselves. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What's important to me? It's very encouraging and edifying. Thank you so
and
much
to know that, I think I really would love people to know that they don't have to find the cure for cancer to have their life have meaning. It can be in the simple little ways that makes a huge difference. And so I think we're magnificent simply because we breathe. So I'm really hoping that
souls.
people understand
souls.
it can.
Yeah, living souls. It's kind of a miracle that we're here. Just that we open our eyes and see is a miracle in itself.
Yeah.
Wow, I got to tell you, I want to let you know that on this call, like where I'm at now is euphoria. I have a sense of euphoria just passing through my body. I feel like some sort of spiritual enlightenment. Thank you so much for this call. Thank you for your words. You shared your soul with us, and I'm so grateful that we have it recorded and we get to share it with the community now. It's really exciting. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Vincent. Thank you.
Okay, well, until next time, maybe we'll have you back on the podcast in the future and when we have more things to share.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Rhonda, for joining us. And to our audience, if you'd like to connect with Rhonda, you can go to rhondahull.com. You can contact her through her website. Go ahead and subscribe to her newsletter so you can see what's new and what she's doing now, next week and the following. Check out her keepsake products. I'm telling you, they brought tears to my eyes. So thank you so much again, and until next time. Bye, Rhonda.
Bye. Thank you, Vincent.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the West Puget Community Connection podcast. Be sure to catch the next episode. Sign up for our email list at westpugetcommunityconnection.com, and you'll be notified when new episodes are published. And if you're interested in advertising or being featured on the show, you can contact us through our website as well, westpugetcommunityconnection.com. The West Puget Community Connection podcast is brought to you in part by mywebdesignservices.com. Quick, easy, affordable websites that look amazing across all devices. For a quote or to get started today, visit mywebdesignservices.com. The West Puget Community Connection Podcast. This is where we learn about the people of our community. We learn what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Subscribe by email at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. We look forward to learning more about you.